Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. It's just a tad early, so we'll give people a minute or so to get logged in and join us. The training lasts about an hour and a half, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. We do record the trainings, so if you can't stay here for the entire time, you can always come back and finish the rest at your leisure. And since we do record them, you can also send the link to other staff members who may need to be a system admin on your account. If you look in the episode description, you'll see some links there. The first one is for our business SMS webinar series. So for those of you interested in texting to and from your Dash account, you're going to want to look at those. It covers things like registration, do's and don'ts. Those come every 2 weeks. So not this Thursday, but next Thursday should be the next one in that series. You'll also see our ACD Queues Pro demo. So if you're interested in call queues, that would be the demo to look at there. The advanced reporting demo, this is if you want customized call reports, you'd want to use that or look at that and then see if you want to talk to our services team to add that to your account. And then last one is the Introduction to Zapier webinar, which is basically linking your Dash account to other software, in this case, Zapier specifically. But that also gives you a look at making use of webhooks on your Dash account. All right, it's 10 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. To get logged into your Dash account, we need 3 pieces of information. The first is your email address, which should all be in lowercase letters. Then your password, which should have been emailed to you. And lastly, your account name, right, which is typically your company name or business name. Now, if for some reason you can't log in, down here at the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, there's a Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that. It'll flip it around. We still need your email address, right? Again, all in lowercase letters. And then we need one of these two. We don't need both, just one of them. So either your account name, right? So the business name, organization name, or a phone number on the account. And that's a customer-facing phone number, right? So the number of people call in to reach your system. You click on Reset Password. This will send you an email, right, to that email address you put up here, and with a link, right? That link basically lets you log in to your user account page to change your password. It logs you back out, and then you come back here and enter that new password. And then you also have the option here to click on Remember Me, and then you click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I logged into several times before, so it's going to take me to my dashboard. If it's your first time logging in with us, when you first time logging into the system will instead take you to your user account page. Now, I can get there by clicking on my name up here at the top right. Basically what it does is it brings up a huge pop-up window. Then this is my user account page. Main thing that you would change here is probably your password to something that you can remember. You might change your system time and or display language. If you're a system admin, you have these other options here to the left, right? So you have the account level settings. The most common thing changed is the time zone language. If you need to change your account name, you actually need to email our billing team, and that's billing@virtualpbx.com. And they'll need to know like the current account name and what you want to change it to. They have to sync up everything on their side. Also on the left here, we have add-ons. This is a new feature that we've added. And basically this allows you to control additional features that you're adding to your account. Basically right now, the only one that you may see would be the text forwarding feature. You have the link here to the billing portal, which basically has another link to get you logged in. So that's where you would change your credit card information. And then you have the option to cancel the account. When you're done here, go ahead and click on the close box to the top right. Now here we have our dashboard page. Now along the top, right, clicking on your name, that will take you back to that user account page. Most of you to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right? That turns your user off and on essentially in terms of if it's on. Okay, so right now mine is off, but if I clicked on it, I would turn it on, and that means I would not be receiving calls, right? Calls would go to my voicemail. Then over here to the right, I have the web phone link. This opens up a new tab, takes me to webphone.virtualpbx.net. The web phone is a VoIP device, right? You have to add it to your user first, and then this should show up. But once it's there, you can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net on your computer via Chrome or Firefox. It uses your Dash login information, right? So you log in there, and then you can use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls. The mobile versions of those browsers are not supported at this time. All right. Next, we got the little chat bubbles. This opens up the virtual text app. So basically, it opens up a new tab and takes you to virtualtext.app. Log in. It has its own login, but that's where you would handle your texting, at least from a computer. There's also the app itself that you can download to your cell phone, and you can use that instead. Little question mark icon here. This will open up a chat window, typically at the bottom right of your browser, so you can speak to one of our support team members, and they can walk you through particular settings or features. Then we got the 3 horizontal line icon. This is the menu icon, right? Takes you to other Dash features. The majority of our time here today will be in this first section here at the top left, the dashboard. But then we'll touch on most of these others. The call center, which is the ACDQs Pro, the advanced reports right here. Those you definitely want to look at the links in the description notes, as they can better show you what those features can do. And then we have a little arrow to the right icon, and that is your logging out. All right, over here on the left, we have your dashboard. That's where we're on right now. Then we have got things like main number, auto attendance, which is a plan-specific feature, devices, etc. We'll be touching on most of these in some detail. Here in the middle, total users. I have 3 users on my account, right? So these are people who make and receive calls. Basically, the majority of our plans, the more users you have, the higher your bill. So something to keep in mind. Then I have my total devices. I have 8 devices. Now, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind. If you don't already know, VoIP means Voice over Internet Protocol, and that just means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. And the first listing here I have is a soft phone, which is a software application that acts like a phone, right? So it's a VoIP device, uses your internet connection to make and receive those calls. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app or any third-party soft phone apps you may be using. Then we got cell phones. So you can add cell phone or landline numbers to your Dash account, and we can route calls to those devices. And what that means is basically we send a call out to your cell phone. It will ring. You can pick up and answer the call. Just bear in mind that when you do answer a call on your cell phone number, that's the endpoint of that call. You're not able to transfer that call to someone else on your Dash account. Whereas if you use the soft phone app, you can transfer, right? Because it's a VoIP phone. Web phone, that's that Chrome or Firefox VoIP device. Technically, it is a kind of soft phone, but it was developed later. So that's why it has a separate heading. Then we have the SIP phone. This is a hardware phone, right? So typically sits on a desk, connects via Ethernet cable to your router, and then you make and receive calls from that device. So VoIP is a general term, right? So VoIP phone is a general kind of device. There are many subtypes of VoIP phones on the market. So if you're shopping, make sure it says somewhere that it's SIP compliant or SIP compatible. That means you at least have a chance of making use of it with us. Unregistered devices, I currently have 0, and that just means I haven't turned off or disabled any of my devices here on the dashboard. Then I have total numbers. These are phone numbers on the account. I have 10. And I have a couple splits here. So first up, I have assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number means it's in use, right? Someone can dial that number and expect to speak to someone, leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax, right? Spare number, I'm not currently using it. Whether that's because I took a number out of service because it was a promotion that's no longer running, or it's because I'm about to expand to a new market, which has a different area code, so I got a number for that area code early. So that way I can start making my marketing materials and whatnot for it ahead of time. Down here, I have USDID. I have 10 of them. That means all my current numbers are USDID numbers, which means a US local number, right? So a number in, say, Miami, Florida would show up under USDID, just as if you had one in Chicago, Illinois. You can if you have U.S. toll-free numbers, right? U.S. Canada toll-free numbers, right? So 800, 888, all the way down to 833. That would have a separate line here saying U.S. toll-free. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you wish. If you want them, you're going to need to email our porting team, and that's porting@virtualpbx.com. They will need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They will let you know if that's possible and if there are any additional requirements from the country that has that number. Conference bridges, I have one of them. That means I have enabled conferencing on one of my users, right? So one of my staff members here can host or moderate a conference. If I go over here towards the top, I have this main number box here, which has 2 numbers, right? These numbers behave the same way, right? They're going to the same spot on my system. They're going to have the same main greeting. You can have obviously multiple numbers here. We have, there are accounts that have got like 20 or more phone numbers as their main number. Next up, the conference bridge number. This is the phone number that everyone dials to join the conference. This includes your staff members, right? So everyone dials this number, they'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. Next up, fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. You can have only the one main fax box number. And you can also, once you have one assigned there, you can set up the fax box to enable outbound faxing as well for your staff. The company directory has 2 links here to the right, CSV and softphone. So CSV just downloads a spreadsheet file, and that shows your staff members, their names, their extension numbers, and their primary devices. The softphone download link is for use with the desktop version of the VirtualPBX softphone app, right? So if you're using our app on a Windows or Mac PC, you can download this file, upload it to your softphone on that computer, and this will allow you to see the status of your other VirtualPBX softphones on your account. Right? It won't show any status of any other device, but if you're only using the VirtualPBX softphone, easy way to see if who's on a call and who's not. All right, VirtualPBX Store. This link will take you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone. Whoops. And then the account realm. Every account has its own account realm, and this is used in a couple things. First thing it's used for is for a third-party softphone. It's one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to program that third-party softphone to work with our system. The other thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. So if you set up your fax box, you can basically put your company's email domain there, and that allows everyone at your company to send a fax out. Basically, then you create an email in the to field +sign number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Then you put the @ symbol, and then you put your account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Okay, we'll go back up here to the top where I have caller ID. If I click on that, it's going to expand out to a big box. At the top is a pull down, which you can select any of your main numbers. Unfortunately, it doesn't show up well on this streaming software, but you can select any of your main numbers, right? That whatever phone number you select here, that becomes your default number for, say, like your VoIP phones when they make an outbound call. That would be by default their outbound caller ID. Next up, you have the company caller ID name or CNAME. This is an optional feature, but this allows you to enter up to 15 characters, and it counts special characters or spaces that you want associated with this main number. Now, again, completely optional. Then you have the company emergency information, or E911. The system wants a North American address here. If you're in Canada, for the zip code, just put your postal code here. And for the state, use your 2-character province abbreviation. Once you've had this information updated, click on Save Changes. Now, if you inputted something here in the company caller ID name, This information gets transmitted to other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. Usually it's a little quicker than that, but 3 business days is what they promise. Now, some caveats about the caller ID name field. Not every carrier supports this feature. So when you're making an outbound call from your VoIP phone, right, your call can route through several carriers before it reaches its destination. If one of those in between us doesn't support CNAM, your CNAM information doesn't show up to the destination. And that kind of dovetails with the destination. Right? That last carrier, so let's say you're calling AT&T, they get to decide what they're going to show up on the phones on their network, right? So we send the phone number and the company call ID name that you put here. They see that information and they can say, oh, we'll pass that through, right? So phones on their network show it, fine. They can also decide, we don't like your information, we'll look up the number under our own set of databases and use that information instead, right? So the phone number comes through, but then maybe different CNAME information shows up. And the other option is they can see that phone number and just send the phone number through and not send anything else through, which should be the default for your cell phone carriers, right? So AT&T Wireless, they would send the phone number through, but not send the name through. And that's fairly common for the wireless carriers. The ones I've encountered, they typically want their subscribers to pay an additional monthly fee in order to have CNA information show up on calls that come to their cell phones. Right? So if you're making test calls to cell phones, there's a good chance your CNAM information will not show up when you call cell phones. All right, hold music. This lets you upload your own media file to Dash. Now, hold music on Dash for here, this is defined as after a call has come into your system and reached your staff members, and then your staff member has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. Right, so they picked up the call, said, hold on a minute, press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this media file will play. Now you can click upload here to upload your own media file. The system will play back .wav and .mp3 files up to 1 megabyte in file size. Because of that file size limit, it's recommended that you record in mono instead of stereo, as that will save you some space. But beyond that, you click Browse to find the file on your computer, click the up arrow icon, and click on Save Changes. This right here where it says Default Music is a pull down. So if you already have media files on the account, they will show up here so you can choose one of those instead. But whenever you're done, click on Save Changes. Now, main number, or hours, I'm sorry, is part of main number. And before we get into all of that, we should probably set up destinations on the account. So in light of that, we will go over here on the left and click on Users. Right, so users show all your people on the account. The person with the gray suit, the gray person icon there for Dante, I think that's, yeah, Dante. They are a standard user, so they have very limited access. Like pretty much they can get to queues if they're assigned to queues. Otherwise, if they log into the website, they get to their voicemail, right? Their user portal, and they check voicemails there, etc. The people with the blue suit icon, these are your system admins, right? So they can do all the changes I've been talking about here. Up here at the top is where you add new users. Basically, you fill out the form. Right, so first name and last name, it just wants some kind of data, right? A character. Like I've literally seen a customer put in A and then period. And they're just doing some testing. Right? The email address used for login over here, that must be unique for each user, right? So you cannot reuse email addresses among several staff members. All right, password, you create the password for the user. And then the main extension number. The system will suggest an extension number for you. Right, so this system started off with extension 1000. So let's say the next available one is 1003. You don't have to follow that, right? Let's say I'm creating a new department. I can just exit that out and I can say, okay, this is my 5100 series of employees. Now, by default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for this user. that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if you created the user and then you added a VoIP phone directly to them, they could pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98, that logs them into their voicemail box. The system will prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box and then prompt them to record their name, which is what the system uses for the Smart PBX directory, and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. Right, so then they're already set up. Include in the user directory, put a check mark here if you want them in there, or leave it blank if you don't. You can change this later. I should backtrack a little bit. The email address used for login is what the system uses to communicate with your staff, right? In terms of like, if you have a voicemail notification, this is the email address it sends it to. Same with password resets, etc. If, however, you want those emails to go to a different address down here, you can click on send to an alternate address. Now, so that means instead of sending that information, like the voicemail notification to the email address used for login, you instead input a different email address in this box, and it will send those notifications to that secondary address. And here is last one is send credentials to the user. You put a check mark here, and when you click on create user, the system will send that email address used for login, or the alternate address if you selected it, a welcome email saying welcome to your Dash account. It'll have the login information as well as a link to get logged in. If you need to add multiple, you can click on create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. All right, so you can change their name if you need to at any time. Here is your option to change their credentials. If you click on this, it opens up a box. So you can change their email address. You can also change their password. Hit it twice. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email directly, so then they can change their password on their own. Here is where you can change their voice box PIN number. This is basically a temporary change. Enter 4 digits and click on Save Changes. Here's your option to send emails to an alternate address. Here's the option to put a user into or take them out of the user directory. This pull down here, right, by the person icon, this allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Little time icon, this allows you to set the time zone for the user, so that way their voicemail timestamps are correct. The little flag icon here, this allows you to change the display language of these web pages. You can choose it from English, French, German, or Russian. The ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds, and that's plenty of time to route calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. If you have a user that's only using a cell phone, you would probably want to increase to at least 30 seconds, possibly as long as 45. Next up, we have the extension number box. When you first create a new user, right, you have to include an extension number. But let's say you just signed up with us and you signed in for the first time. When you come to the user page, where it says extension for your user, it will say none, right? You're going to want to click on that and add an extension number to your user. And that way, you can have the system can then use that extension number as the basis for any future users. As well as once you have an extension number, you can enable your voicemail user feature. Users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. Now, adding phone numbers can increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of. But you have these two options here, right? Add from spare or by numbers. Add from spare means you're reusing a number, right? So you already have it on your account, right? So if I click on this, it's going to show me I have these two available numbers, so I could add this 802 number, for example. Click Add Selected, and then click Save Changes. And now Dante has 2 phone numbers. Now, these phone numbers don't have hours of operation, right? They're available 24/7, so that's something also to be aware of. Just unassign that. Now, buying numbers is adding numbers to your account. Oops. You have the options for local and toll-free. We'll start with toll-free. You choose a toll-free prefix you want to work with. Click on Search. Should show you a list of phone numbers that are available. You can add multiple at once if you want to, but basically you scroll through here, you find a number you like, you click add. Now at this point, you haven't done anything, right? You're not finished. You haven't reserved this number in any fashion. So if I get pulled away, or let's say I just keep talking for a long time, it's possible that someone could select this number while I'm talking and basically grab it before I actually have added it to my account. But let's say I'm just done just adding this one number. I click by numbers. Now the system is verifying that it was truly available and then adding it to my account and then activating it. And you see it's now here. And then I click Save Changes. All right, local numbers, you need to know the area code. So you can do a search for area code, right? 408 is San Jose's original, let's say, and right, you can see a list here. But let us instead, oops. Right, for any area code, and this includes the toll-free prefixes, you can get this message, right? And it's just saying that there's no available numbers in that particular area code. Right, it's exhausted. Now, in that case, you'd want to use your favorite search engine, do a search for, in this case, area code 310 overlay. And that overlay is 424. And then here you see I have plenty to choose from. I could just click add and by numbers. Right, overlay for a lot of the major metropolitan areas, right, they're going to have multiple phone numbers or area codes in the same metropolitan area. If you have to have a specific area code, you can email our porting team, right? porting@virtualpbx.com. They need to know the area code that you're looking for. They can do what's called a back order, which basically means we're telling the world, hey, if a phone number in, say, area code 310 becomes available, we want to try to acquire it. The problem with that is we can't give you an ETA, right? We're waiting on someone to give up their phone number, and then we try to acquire it. And we may not be alone in trying to acquire that number as well. And let's go ahead and unassign these. All right. So I'm clicking on the devices box here. Right, you can add from spare if you're going to reuse a device or add a new device. Now the first one up is a SIP phone, right? This is that physical VoIP phone. Sits on your desk or someone's desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Some of them have a lot of models to work with. Some only about a dozen, or if that. Not even a dozen in this case. Right, so you can look through these various manufacturers, see a make and model that you want to buy. Once you say have the make and model, then you need to give it a name. I recommend putting like the person's name in the word phone or the location, right? So Bob phone or break room phone, something like that. Avoid using like phone 1 or phone A. 6 months, a year from now, you're not going to know where that phone really is, especially if it got moved around among your staff members. But so you give it a name, and then you need to put the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device, typically as a sticker on the back of the phone. Or if the phone's plugged in, typically under its status settings, you can find the MAC address listed there. You enter it here, then you click on Create Device, right? And then you click on Save Changes. You want to come back here, click on the device box, click on the device itself, right? This gives you the basic information here. Go to Advanced, go to Miscellaneous, and where it says Allow Reprovision, click on Unlock, click on Save Changes, and Save Changes down here. That tells the system that this phone is getting ready to be used, right? It's going to be provisioned to get registered with us. At that point, within our dashboard, you're essentially done. You do have to, however, log into the phone's web user interface, right? The web UI. That usually means getting the IP address from the phone, putting that IP address on your computer's browser address bar, and log into the phone's interface that way. That computer must be on the same network as the phone. In general, it's usually the easiest way. Once you get logged in, you need to go to the phone's auto provisioning tab and enter a URL. And basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here to grab your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages and look up the document called auto provisioning phones, or auto provisioning is the only thing you really need to search for. That document's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers in terms of where to look for, where to go. They'll have some settings to double check. Usually you don't have to change any of those. It'll have the proper syntax for the URL. And basically then you click save or update or confirm, and then you click auto provision now. Once you click auto provision now, the phone's going to reboot a couple times, and then it will show up as a green device on your system. Then you can make and receive calls. Let's click on this again. So audio, under selected, you should have G711A and G711U. Those are the most common codecs that we use. And this is any codec, these codecs you would use for any physical device, right? So whether it's a Yealink phone, or if you used a third-party soft phone to program a physical phone, right? You want to have those selected. Emergency caller ID. So each phone number can have its own E911 address, which you can assign to the specific devices. And that's the main things that come up here. Oh, I should go back to the phone numbers here. So the little gear icon here, over here to the right of a phone number, this allows you to update the caller ID, right? So you can update the outbound and turn on the inbound CNAME capabilities. E91, so you can add a specific address to a particular phone number, right? So if you have staff in multiple locations, you can have the right address information for E911 purposes only. And then prepend is a VoIP phone feature where you can add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' phones. All right. Next up, cell phone or landline. Basically, you need to fill out the form here, right? So the device name, Bob's phone, right? Then the number should be +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then click on create device, and then click on save changes. So we'll go up here to myself. Oops. So here, right, gave it a name, and then I put in this phone number, right? No spaces, no dashes, no parentheses, just the +1 area code and number. If we go to advanced options, this is the standard setup for a new cell phone or landline on the system. Basically what happens, call comes in, reaches out to my user, then goes to my cell phone, right? My cell phone rings. I pick it up. When I pick it up, I'm going to hear, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When I press 1, I'm telling the system, yes, I'm there, and yes, I want to take this call. Right? I press 1. This is the other person is connected to me. We begin speaking. Now, let's say, for instance, I've contracted out with another company to handle my after-hours calls, right, with an automated answering service. That service gives me a phone number, said, hey, just send your calls to this phone number. We'll handle your after-hours calls. I would come into my system here on Dash, create a cell phone or a landline with that phone number. However, I would want to come over here under advanced options. It says where it says allow use of cell phones voicemail, put a check mark here, and then click on save changes. What that does is now, when we send a call out to this phone number, the system doesn't have that message about this is a forwarded call, please press 1. And instead, when it hears that pickup tone from my answering service, the system connects the call right away. Right? So then my answering service can handle the call. Everybody's happy. Now, if this is really my cell phone, I could also put the setting in place. And what can happen is when my cell phone voicemail picks up, right, the system treats that like a pickup tone. So it sends that inbound caller to my personal cell phone's voicemail box. Right? Some people want that. Some people do not. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this keep original caller ID. So say customer Mary calls into the system, which is my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. Now, if I'm getting a lot of robodialers, or next year in the US, we're going to have an election, so I'm probably going to get a ton of political calls. I may not, when I see a phone number I don't recognize, I may just let it go to voicemail, right? But what I could do instead is uncheck this. So now when customer Mary calls into my system, Instead of seeing her phone number, I see my main number. If I go back to my dashboard here, the number I selected here, this 512 number, that's what shows up on my cell phone. So hopefully I would recognize my main company number, and then I'd pick up the call. Right, so it's a visual way to know if you're getting a business call versus a personal call. Oops, cancel that. All right, next up is soft phone. So whenever you add a soft phone or web phone to a user, you'll get this warning message. Please make sure to read this at least once. Click on close, and then you'll get a big box showing up on the screen. So this setup right here is for a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using a soft phone application that is not from VirtualPBX, i.e. you're using like XLite from Counterpath. That's fine. You would just give it a name, and then you would use the SIP username. Click on the SIP password box so you can copy and paste that. Do not change that. And then use your account realm. Those are the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision that third-party soft phone. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, however, down here, right below where it says View Configuration Guide, there's a toggle. It says Use Third-Party Application. Click on that. It flips it. So now it says Use VirtualPBX Application. You still need to give it a name, but then you click on, let's go like, all right, click on Create Device, and then down here you click on Save Changes. Once I click on Save Changes, Dante here gets an email saying his VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. It's going to have his username, his password, so he can log into the app itself, and it'll have download links. And then the other thing you may want to add here is the web phone. The web phone uses your Dash login information, so it does need to be associated with the user in order for it to work. You just give it a name, click on Create Device, and then Save Changes. And then Dante can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net and use his Dash login to log in there. Right, then we have user features. So first up, we have caller ID number. This works with users that have their own phone numbers assigned to them. You click to turn it on. You choose a phone number that's on the user, and then you click on Save Changes. And what this does is this phone number now becomes my outbound caller ID whenever I make a call from my VoIP phones, instead of the 512 number that's on the main number. Virtual text, this allows for texting. You turn this on, you choose a phone number that's on the account. It should be an auto-attendant number, main number, or a number assigned to the user. And then you click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, the user gets an email welcoming them to virtual text, have its own login information, and then they can text to your customers. The main advantage of virtual text is you can share numbers among your staff members. So like your main number can be shared among your staff. So that way you have multiple people who can keep track or communicate with your customers from your main number. If you don't see this feature on your account or on your users, you want to reach out to our account services team. They need to go over a few things with you regarding SMS, including SMS registration, and then they can get that enabled on your account. Voicemail box. So in order for your voicemail box feature to work, you need to have an extension number. And then this is default. Basically, the system is going to automatically attach an email, an MP3 file to the email notification. All right. So call comes in, they leave a voicemail. I get an email saying, hey, you got a call. In the body of the email, I'll have like the date, the time, the phone numbers involved, the extension number. There'll be an MP3 attachment I can click on and then listen to it. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. By default, you have 3 ways to listen to voicemails and 2 ways to manage your voicemails, right? So one of the ways to listen to it is via email, right? That we just went over here. In terms of the other 2 ways, one is to call into the system, right? So from your VoIP phone, pick it up, dial *98, click call. That's going to log you right into your voicemail box. If let's say you're working remotely or you're on the road or you only have a cell phone, You can call into your main number as long as it goes to a virtual receptionist. And when you hear the main greeting start up, you get *97 from, say, your cell phone. That will tell the system you want to check voicemail. It will then prompt you for your voicemail box number and then your PIN number. And then you can listen to it over that way. Again, whether you call in from the main number or you're from a VoIP phone directly in, while you're listening over the phone, you'll have options to delete a message. Right? The other way is via your user portal. Right? So log into dash.virtualpbx.com, and we go back up here, click on the user portal option here, and that defaults you to your voicemail tab. So then you can listen to your voicemails directly in the browser and delete them as well. Now, if you have a very busy voicemail box, let's say I'm using my main voicemail box here for like all of my groups and whatnot. It's like the default, I'm using it as my default voicemail box. Then what I would want to do is probably delete after notification. So that way my voicemail box doesn't become full, right? And I can just rely on the emails to listen to the messages. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. When you first set it up, it looks like this, right? So you have to tell the system what devices are you going to use. You uncheck the ones that you want to use, and it actually starts off looking like that. Here, we'll put them both like so, if it lets me, maybe. All right, so when you uncheck them, it says they're both at 0 seconds. And then you click and drag the bar to increase the ring time. So like for my cell phone here, I'd probably want to put it a little bit longer so it has more time. Up here on the top are timestamps. So I can change my total ring time to say 60 seconds, for example. I can click distribute. So now I'm equalizing it out between these two devices, right? So ring the web phone first and then my cell phone. Click and drag, I can change the order. And then click distribute again. And then when I'm done, click on Save Changes. One thing to keep in mind, if my user is part of a group, the calls from the group will ignore the follow me settings, right? So when I get a call from the group, both of my phones will ring at the same time. All right, fax box. You can choose to have users have their own fax box if you want them to. Right? You just click enable. And then you have the option to use a spare number, buy a new number, or assign a second extension number. I recommend making use of a phone number that gives you the user the most versatility, meaning like they can send and receive faxes. If you assign an extension number, while that saves you some money in terms of not having an extra phone number, it limits who can send the fax to this user. It also means they can't send a fax out, right? So if you select an extension number, what happens for the person faxing in, right? They have to call your main number, hear the greeting, then enter the extension number, and then click send fax, which is fine if they have someone standing at a fax machine listening in, they can do that, or if their fax machine allows them to program additional digits, right? So phone number, pause, and then extension number. However, like your electronic fax services, at least the ones I've encountered so far, they don't have a provision to allow you to send a fax to an extension number, right? They only want you to enter a phone number. When this person tries to fax out, and if you only assign an extension number to them, the system uses their extension number as their outbound caller ID, which will fail. Conference bridge, you click to enable, and then you need to set up a PIN number for them, and then click on Save Changes. Your staff members can change the PIN numbers themselves under the user portal. There's a conference tab there. All right, and this just means that my user can host or moderate a conference. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff can turn call forwarding off or on their own via the user portal or directly from their VoIP phone. A failover mode is something you have to set up for them, and this is basically a backup, right? Basically saying, hey, if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call comes into them at that time, forward the calls to the phone number you designate. So I turned it failover mode on. I selected mobile phone, and here I put +1 area code and phone number, and then save changes. Now, my user actually has a cell phone device on them as well as a VoIP phone, so there's actually not a reason for me to use failover mode, right? Because I'm already forwarding calls to a cell phone as a secondary device. Customize call recording. You can click enable. By default, the system looks like this, saying what kind of calls do you want to record. Right. So inbound, internal, coworker call. Right. So coworker Dante called me. Inbound, external, customer Mary called me. Right. Outbound, internal, I called Dante. Right. Outbound, external, I called customer Mary. So mostly we see something like this for the two externals, or we just see all of them. And then you click on Save Changes depending on what you want. Now, your account includes some level of account data storage as part of your monthly plan price. So if you just signed up with us, you can just look at the pricing page. If you have an older account, you're gonna probably want to talk to our account services team to verify how much storage you get and what the overage is. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you're gonna want to make use of AWS integration. And basically that means if you have an AWS account, you can link it to your Dash account and have your calls stored on AWS. Right? So for heavy call volume, it's going to be more cost effective to do that. You need to talk to our account services team about that as well. Music on hold, you can have your staff members have their own hold music if you want to. You just click to enable, upload a file, right? .wave, .mp3, probably want that recorded in mono. This, for instance, you'd want, like if your sales team, you'd want them to have one set of hold music talking about promotions or specials that are running, whereas your other staff, you may just want to have a general hold music file. Otherwise, you can browse, right, to find the file, or you can choose from an existing file on the system. Do not disturb. As an admin, if you turn this on a user, that means they're not getting calls, right? So like, let's say you have a staff member is on extended leave. You say, nope, just send calls to their voicemail. Hot desking, when you click to enable, this is a VoIP phone feature. This allows your staff members to log into a particular VoIP phone and receive calls at that phone, right? So shared office environment, hybrid scheduling. So I come into the office on Tuesday, I sit down on desk number 2, I pick up the VoIP phone there, I hit *11. That tells the phone to turn on hot desking. It asks me for my hot desk ID, which would be set up here. And if the admin said, hey, you have to have a PIN number, then whatever PIN number was designated. So if you use 4-digit extensions, for example, I just say make their hot desk ID their extension number. And then for you click on Save Changes. For them, after they hit their hot disk ID number, the system tells them that calls will now be sent to this device, right? So the rest of my workday, I'm at desk number 2. Any call looking for my user goes to desk number 2. Right. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, Angela's at desk number 2. I say good morning. I move over to desk number 7. Same thing. Pick up the phone, *11, enter hot desk ID, and now I'm getting calls there. All right, groups. Groups, also referred to as hunt groups or ring groups, departments. All right, this allows you to set up calls to go to multiple staff members at the same time or in a specific order. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You need to give it a name and an extension number, and then you click and drag your staff members that you want in the group, and then click on Create Group. Once the group is created, you can click on the name, so you can change the name at any time, right up here. And then you also have group call attempts. Little arrows here to the right, so you can increase that or decrease it as you see fit. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the members of the group, right? So in this case, I'm saying offer it to my group members. Let's change that to 2 times, right? And then after that, we'll get into what happens. You can delete a group at any time if you don't need it any longer. But other than that, click on Save Changes. Next up, I have the members box. If I click on that, it shows my staff members and the way that calls are being offered to them. So right now, call comes in, it's offered to Taylor first, then to myself, and then to Dante. It's always going to ring in this order. So if Taylor is on a call, the system does not skip him, right? So we'll try to ring him for that first 20 seconds, then it will go to me, right? Then I pick up. If a third caller calls in and Taylor and I are still both on calls, that third caller has to wait 40 seconds before it's offered to Dante. Now, these are sliders, so I can click and drag and I can increase it to something like that, for instance. So that way those second and third callers aren't waiting on hold for quite as long. And I can even extend them all, everyone out. Oops. Right, so now in this case, whoever picks up the call gets the call. Now, the downside of this is, right, everyone's phone's ringing, I pick up, right? I answer the call, but so did Dante, right? So we both pick up at the same time. The system has to make a decision on who gets the call. And so the other person, so we'll say Dante, will hear dead air. So he'll think, oh, wait, something's wrong. Now, if you're in the same office building or same office, right, you can probably pretty quickly hear, oh, the other person's on the call. They must have got it. Whereas you might have many people working remotely, it may be harder to determine if someone actually picked up the call. Now I can also change, up here along the top is our timestamps, so I can change the total ring time. So I can take it down to 60 seconds, for example. I can click distribute, so it always rings in the same order. Excuse me. I can change the order, right? Click and drag, just like under follow me, click distribute, and now it's ringing with Dante first. Down here, you can add more users, right? So if I had more than 3 users, I can add more people, and I can remove people as necessary. The extension number box, you can have multiple extension numbers for a group if you need to. And most of that's used for either people calling in, they can enter that extension number, or other staff can transfer. Groups can have their own phone numbers. Right? You can add from spare, buy new. Just like under users, this phone number is open 24/7. And then we got group features. Ring back. So call comes into the group, rings your staff members. Right, their phones ring. That ring sound is then piped back to the inbound caller. Right, ring back. If you want something else to play instead, you enable the ring back feature here, and then you either find a file on the computer or upload, right? .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono, up to 1 megabyte in size, and that will play back until your staff members pick up. The main thing about ringback is you want to make sure that file length, in terms of how much time it plays, matches or exceeds your total ring time in the group. Right? The system doesn't loop it automatically. Next action. I do recommend turning this on because if no one answers a call, where do you want the call to go? Right? And then you have your pull down here. You can send it back to your main menu, your call queues, a particular device, right? Someone's phone. You can send it to one of your other groups. You can send it to one of your staff members or a voicemail box on the account. And then click on Save Changes. Allow call forwarding. If you enable it, that means your VoIP phone users can make use of call forwarding to say send calls to their cell phone. Again, if the cell phone is a device on their users, you don't need to make use of call forwarding. Caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users, but you can add either text, like support in this case, or a number prefix in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. I recommend only using one of these, not both of these, as having both can kind of make it confusing for your staff. Also make it harder to pick out what the phone number is in case they need to call them back. So after you have users in groups, now it makes sense to go to main number and set up how your calls are routing, how calls are coming in. Right. So first up, you have your main company numbers. You can always buy new or add from spare. Then you can set up your office hours strategy. Excuse me. You have 24-hour open office, meaning you're open 24/7. Or you can do custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day. And then in these boxes here to the right, set up your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here towards the bottom, you have the option to say you're closed for lunch. And that means every day that you're open, you're automatically closed for lunch at the same time by the system. And then you click on Save Changes. Office holidays, you can choose to be closed for holidays or not. Over here towards the right, you have Add Holiday. You have the option for single day, date range, or advanced. So single day, I have like here for Memorial Day, or rather, sorry, Christmas Day. Right, so you give it a name, choose the month and the date, click on Save Changes. Date range, like I have here for holiday, give it a name, a start date, and an end date, and then Save Changes. Advanced is here for Memorial Day. I give it a name, I choose the month, and then in this pull down, you have first through fifth, as well as last to choose from, and then the day of the week. Right, if you need to get rid of one, click on the little trash icon. Otherwise, keep clicking Add until you're done, and then Save Changes. And then we have incoming call handling. So for my two main numbers, how do I want calls throughout during my open hours, during my after hours, or during my holidays? Now, I have the same basic three options. So the first one here is calls come in and go to my virtual receptionist. When I click on the virtual receptionist link there, it opens up this big old box. On the left here, this is my main menu. Right, so this is what people press on their phones to navigate through my phone system. I click Add Route to create more options. This pull down allows you, the first pull down allows you to select 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default action. The second pull down lets you hit locations on the system, right? So call queues, directory, users, right? So you'd have to have users to include them as an option. Groups, again, you'd have to have groups to have them as an option first. Devices, voicemail box. You can also have a media file play for like, say, hours of operation or directions, but be aware, once the media file stops playing, the call is ended. Right, and click X to remove a route that you don't need any longer. On the right, you have your greetings. Basically, this is where you say thank you for calling, give your business name, and then you give directions. Right? You're telling the customers, hey, press this option to speak to so-and-so. That sort of thing. First up is text-to-speech. This allows you to type in a greeting. You can enter up to 250 characters, not words. Does not count spaces, so you have a little bit of leeway there. This is then plays it back in a computerized or robotic voice. So this is good for if you're just starting up with us or in general, right? General startup. You're not quite sure yet how your calls are going to route. Now, unfortunately, you're not able to save the file name for this, right? It just creates the file for you and it names it, in this case, my main open hours menu TTS. So my recommendation is when you make use of this is after you're finished, when you click update, save, and then save changes, on the left-hand side, one of the options is greetings. You'd want to go there, find main open hours menu TTS, change the file name. And we'll get into that shortly. Because anytime you come back in here, and if I edit, like I just add, have a great day, right? Once I click update, now I'm going to have two files called main open hours menu TTS. You can upload your own file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, up to 1 megabyte. Choose from an existing file. You see I have a main open hours menu TTS file selected. This pull down will show all your media files on the account, right? So hold music files, voicemail greetings, main greetings would all show up. So why you want to use file names that are easy for you to recognize what they are quickly. You can record it over the phone. Now, it says pick up a phone registered to this account. That means a VoIP phone. I don't know why it didn't say just a VoIP phone registered to the account, but that's what it is. And that's a security measure, right? So if it's a phone registered to the account, the system knows, oh, this phone belongs to this account. So it's safe for it to change the greeting. Now, if you don't want to do that, or let's say you want to, have a friend call in from their cell phone, then under here, under settings, go to allow outside recording and turn that on. Excuse me. So no matter what, when you call into your system, you need to give this PIN number. If you don't have a greeting in place, right? Like say you just signed up for us, you don't have a greeting. When you call your main number, the system will tell you that the greeting for this menu has not been created yet, and then prompt you for the PIN number, right? So then you enter it, it will then walk you through recording the greeting over the phone. If you have a greeting in place, so let's say you started off with a text-to-speech greeting, and you got feedback that it just didn't sound right or people were thrown off by it. When they hear that main greeting play, just enter the PIN number anyway. The system will then change you to walk you through recording the greeting over the phone. When you click save. Now, if you just started with this, right, you had no greeting in place, the system will give you the file name on its own. If, let's say, you had main open hours menu TTS as the greeting selected and you called in and saved a new greeting, the file name stays the same. It's still going to say main open hours menu TTS, but you overwrote that original content with your voice. You can choose a professional recording. When you click order, this will open up a tab and take you to Snap Recordings. There you can order a professionally done greeting. They have something like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They bill you directly via credit card, and then they send you the file via email. So then you can just go back up here to upload your own file. All right, settings. First up is we have number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. All right, so in this case, they can make one mistake. That means they get 2 total attempts to enter the correct menu option or extension number. All right, dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for an additional button press, right? So let's say a caller calls in and they press 7. The system's going to wait for a count of 5. Said, oh, they meant extension 7 or menu option 7. Well, menu option 7 doesn't exist. And if I don't have an extension number 7, then that counts as a failed attempt. Excuse me. Right, then the greeting would play again, and they could hopefully enter the correct menu option or extension number. All right, we already covered allow outside recording. Allow dialing extensions, by default, this is on, and this just means if an inbound caller calls in and enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension. If I turn that off, that means inbound callers, when they call in, they can only press the menu options. Anything else will be count as an invalid entry. And then lastly, we have this down here, suppress the playing of invalid entry. So caller calls in, right, and they keep pressing 7, right? Eventually, after that second attempt, the system says, we did not recognize your entry. Then, because I have a default action, it would send them to my default action here. If I remove it, the default action, say, we did not recognize your entry, and then say goodbye. So if I add that back in, so let's say I actually had this default route going to a voicemail box. I could turn this on. So what could happen is the person keeps pressing 7. After that second attempt, the system won't play that we did not recognize your entry. Instead, it would transfer the caller to my default action. So any changes you make to your main menu, to your greetings, or your settings, click on Save here, and then click Save Changes here under Incoming Call Handling. So you're clicking Save twice. All right, after hours routing, I just chose the second option. I mean, I could have chose it for the first, or my open hours, but basically this is the live operator answer option. Right, so in this case, I'm offering calls first to my support group. Right, so if they can pick up, they answer the call. Maybe they have to transfer. Maybe they handle the call. Right, but if my support group isn't able to answer the call, then the call is then sent to my virtual receptionist. In this case, my after hours receptionist. So I would have different menu options, most likely, a different greeting, right, and potentially different settings. Excuse me. And then holidays. Oh, sorry. Let's go back. So this is a pull down, right? So I can select users, call queues, groups, etc., even the device. Probably don't want voicemail boxes. And you'd want to avoid a media file because that can be confusing to your inbound caller, right? Because they'll hear the media file first, then they'll get to your virtual receptionist and hear a second media file. That can throw people off. All right. For holidays, the third option here, again, you can offer it to users, groups, call queues, devices. In this case, you could use a media file because the second pull down is a voicemail box on the system. The last option right down here, skip to voicemail. Basically, call comes in, send them right to the voicemail box, right? Which makes sense for during a holiday setting. The main conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers, right? So you have the option to add from spare or buy new. You can click on custom greeting and turn it on. You can enter in a text-to-speech greeting, 250 characters, etc. Even if I left this disabled and I called my conference room number, the system will still say welcome to the conference and then prompt me to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one, which is why I don't have the option to add another one. But here I have the option to edit the fax box. So first you have the inbound notification email address, right? So basically whenever a fax comes into the system, I get an email saying you have a new fax. Here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and a PDF attachment. Now, if someone dials my fax box number from, say, their cell phone, right? They hear fax tones and hang up, I'm going to get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, in the caller ID, sometimes it says wireless number. So then I know, oh, that was someone who, mistakenly dialed. I don't have to worry about it. But if it's a phone number I recognize or I was expecting a fax from, in that case, then I'd want to double check with that person to find out what was going on or what they encountered. The email permissions, this is designed to put your company's email domain here. And this basically allows for your outbound faxing, right? So I'm saying anyone at VirtualPBX, they can send a fax out from this account as long as they know the proper format, right? That +1 area code and phone number, @ symbol, and then they need the account realm. After that, they just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file, and they're good to go. All right, auto attendance is a plan-specific feature, right? This allows you to create secondary attendance. Those secondary attendants can be used for things like sub-menuing, right? Press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You would create an English and Spanish auto attendant to have greetings in the appropriate language, and then the menu options go to people who speak that language. The other reason you would create an attendant would be if you have multiple businesses and you want those businesses to have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings, right? The calls can route to the same staff people, but each business has its own greeting and whatnot. So up here at the top, you click on Add Attendant. You give it a name. You give it an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers would ever know. It's just something your staff members could use to transfer calls to the correct business or language speaking people. And then you click on Create Auto Attendant or Create Attendant, excuse me. Once an attendant is created, click on the name. By default, it looks like this, unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant designed to be its own business. Right? If I click on it to be available in main menu, now it's a sub-menu option. Right? So it show up as an option under my virtual receptionist, among other places, or even as a next action place for a group. Right? Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers. I can either buy numbers or add from spare. Right? I have a little gear icon here, so I can edit the caller ID, E911, or PFEND. Right? Extension numbers can have their own, or have to have their own extension number to be even created, but then you can add additional extension numbers if you wish to. And then beyond that, you can click on the little wrench icon here, and you see I have a virtual receptionist, after hours, and holidays, right? So these times match the times I set up under my main number. So if you wanted to have a business open 24/7, but your main account is only open Monday through Friday, you'd want to talk to our account services team to see if there's either a custom or customized call flow that we can set up for you, right? So to keep everything on one account, or if it makes more sense for you to have 2 separate accounts. Beyond that, this is a virtual receptionist, right? So it's set up your menu options, your greetings, your settings, click save, and save changes. Right, the devices tab shows your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, so we can't send a call to it. Green means we can send calls to it. If you turn off here under this enable column, then they'll turn black, meaning it's disabled. Right? Otherwise, I turn it back on. Up here at the top, you can add new devices directly here to the devices tab. When you do so, they're not assigned to any specific user, right? So you have to add from spare devices to the user. And then the main thing is when you select soft phone, you don't have that option to say use VirtualPBX application, right? So on the devices page, if you add a soft phone, you can only ever add a third-party soft phone, meaning you're using someone else's application. But even for soft phones, for instance, you can change the external caller ID, but you can also change the emergency caller ID as necessary. If you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you also want to make sure codec-wise, under audio, that it's Opus, which is what it defaults to. Greetings tab over here on the left. These are your greetings on the account, right? So your main greetings, your voicemail greetings, your hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add a new file. Just give it a name, browse to find it on your computer, and then click on create greeting. It will then upload it here, .wave.mp3 under 1 megabyte. For any recording that's already here, right, you can see the name. The source recording means it was recorded over the phone, right? Uploaded, an uploaded file. And then TTS means text to speech. This column here allows you to play back the greeting directly in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, then you have the option here to download the file so you can listen to it on your device directly. And then little wrench icon here. This is where you can delete a greeting, but this is also where you can change the file name, right? So, and then save changes. Helps to actually click it. All right, next up is numbers. So first up, starts with your numbers in use. Shows you where they're located. You have a little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or prepend for any number. Spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not currently using. You have the option up here to buy numbers as well, right? It's local or spare or local or toll free, right? They would just add them here to their spare number list. If you want to remove a number, you can do so. Just click on the check mark in front of the number. Now you have the option to delete up here at the top. So you just click delete, confirm the deletion, and then click on continue. And now I have less numbers. The port process, this starts a new port, a port in of a number, right? Meaning you're moving a phone number, say from Comcast to VirtualPBX. Give it a name, choose local or toll free. Then it wants you to upload a PDF copy of your most recent bill, ID within 30 days. Basically, you just follow the steps going forward. It will ask you for a BTN, billing telephone number. If you're only porting in the one phone number, that phone number that you're porting in is also your BTN. If you're porting multiple numbers, then you need to talk to your current carrier. You also need to submit a completed and signed LOA. LOA stands for letter of agency. It's gonna basically, the LOA is gonna have like your business name that the current carrier has on file, the address that they have on file for you. It needs to be signed by the authorized person that your current carrier has on file. It can be a digital signature file, or you can print it out and sign it manually and then scan it back in. But typing your name twice or printing your name won't work. It will get rejected. And then this delays when your port will get completed. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about 1 week to complete if everything is correct. local numbers range. Some have reported like the next business day, but typically it averages 2 to 3 weeks. If we get an error, we double check to make sure we didn't have a typo someplace on our side, or if there's alternate information, right? So like if there are 2 addresses listed on your LOA, we would try both addresses to see if that will go through. But if none of that works, then we'd let you know we're getting a rejection. Here's the reason. That means you need to contact your current carrier to find out what the correct information is in order to port the number. Voicemail boxes shows your voicemail boxes on the account. The ones with information under a user means that was created when the user was created, right? So the user voicemail boxes. Otherwise, they were created manually. Up here at the top, click on New Voicemail Box, give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. We'll click on the wrench icon here, right? So you see support, voicemail box number, PIN number. If I go to Advanced, and then Greeting Media, here I can upload or choose a file that's already on my system for the voicemail box greeting message, right? .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono, up to 1 megabyte. Now there's 2 fields here, temporary and media. If something is selected in temporary, it plays, no matter if you have anything in media or not, right? Once you put temporary back to none, then the media file plays, right? The temporary is for that out of office or vacation message. Recipients, so your user voicemail boxes have a recipient built in, right? The email address used for login. But for any voicemail box you create here, you want to click Add New Recipient and then enter the email address. And if you need to add multiple, click Add to add the next one. And again, until you're done, and then Save Changes. Obviously, for your user voicemail boxes, you can do this to add additional recipients, right? So like a manager wants to get the voicemails to his staff in case they're out of the office kind of thing. So once you've added greeting media and recipients, you can go to options here, and then you can put a check mark in front of already set up. And then you can double check to make sure that the attached messages are going to emails. And then if you want to delete after notification in case it's going to be a busy voicemail box. Text forward. New feature basically allows you to send text to emails, or inbound text to emails, right? So up here at the top, click on Add. You choose a phone number that's on the account. You choose either an email address to send it to or a webhook, one or the other. You can't do both. And then you click on Create Text Forward. So now whenever text comes into this phone number, it will go to that destination that you sent. You're not going to be able to use text forward with your virtual text phone numbers. Right? These are 2 slightly different things. Right. Call logs shows your call history on the account. I'll go to this month so you can see there's more. Green arrow to the right, that's a system calling a call coming into the system, and you can see where it reached out to or where it went. Let's see, I thought I had others down here. All right, so here you can see it went out to the cell phone number. I don't know if this one actually went anywhere. The yellow arrows to the left are calls that went out from the system. Usually you're not going to get a whole lot of more information. In general, you want to see normal clearing. So that lets you know the call ended normally as far as the system is concerned. The little fire extinguisher icon, this reports the call. Basically, it creates an email for you, free address to support@virtualpbx.com. But please make sure that you enter in some data or context about why you're sending that information into us. Just from the technical details, we may not be able to understand why you're sending it to us. Now, you can always download these as a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get some more information about your call logs. The custom allows you to change your date range. Right, so you can go further back if you want, although I don't think there's much call data here on the, not a lot of call activity here in June. The system will let you go back up to 12 months. After that, you'd have to contact our service or support team, and we have to escalate that up to our engineers. They can go back up to 18 months, but after that, the data is not available. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This information you can obviously get here, but it's also a page on our support pages. And you can also do a search for a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has the feature codes, but it also has this context help typed out for you as well. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next step, we have blacklists. So blacklists allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. It's an included feature. You click Edit Blacklists here on the right, click Add to create a new list, or click on an existing list, right? No matter what, you need to add a name, and then choose if you're blocking anonymous calls or not. By default, this is off, right? So this one being on, meaning that if we get a phone number call coming in, and it doesn't give us proper caller ID, we're blocking the number, right? If I turn it off, they're coming through. Beyond that, down here, I click on Add Number, and I enter the number, right? +1 area code number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And keep clicking Add until you're done adding numbers. Once you're done, click Save. Then go towards the top and click on Back to Settings. And make sure your list is on the right-hand side here under Selected, and then click Update, right? So you might have to click and drag to bring it over to be selected. Faxes takes you to your fax manager. Starts off in your inbound faxes. Select your inbound fax box. You can see the date and time, the phone number involved. You can download the file. Put a check mark here. You can remove it. Outbound faxes, select the fax box. A failed status here indicates we had a problem with the other phone number. Now, that could be the number kept ringing busy every time we attempted. The system will attempt it 3 times. Or it could be wrong number, right? Even initial connection was made, but then something interrupted the data flow, right? And then you can always download the file. The email to fax logs, this shows when a system had a problem processing the request, right? So you see the email address involved, the format that they sent it out in, but you click on the little eyeball icon here. In this case, it says no valid attachment. So this means they could have forgotten an attachment completely, or they could attach something other than a PDF or a TIFF file. All right, number manager, this just takes you back to your spare number page. The reports, this opens up a new tab and takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. Reports allows you to create your own custom reports to get data about your calls. In the show notes, there's a link there for the advanced reports demo. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you want to see what can be done. And if there's something you're interested in, you'd want to talk to our account services team so they can see about what it would cost in terms of adding it to your account, if anything. Voicemails tab shows your voicemail boxes on the account. So you can get to any of them on a voicemail box. You can see the date, the time, and phone numbers involved. You can play back the message, download it. As an admin, when you put a check mark in front of it, you can move it to a different voicemail box, as well as change its status. The call center, this opens up a new tab. Goes to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. This is where it would then ask you to log in using your Dash login information. So if you're part of the call queues, you can log into the queues there, change your status, right, to log in to being ready or not ready, to log out, as well as assign people to queues. Again, in the link, one of the links in the description notes is for the ACD Queues Pro demo, which will show you what the queues can do. The queues, you can, like a manager on a queue can eavesdrop on a call, as well as whisper or barge, right? So eavesdrop just to listen, whisper to help the agent out, barge in because things are getting out of control. All right, dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules that change your VoIP phone's outbound caller ID. So here we got this first one here for Vegas. So you give it a name, right? You choose a phone number on your account. In this case, a 702 number. And I basically said, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 702 area code phone number from their VoIP phone, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to the 702 number I selected. All right. This other one here. Oh. I just gave it San Jose, but I'm changing the caller ID to an 855 number. But I'm saying here, whenever they dial a star 408, right? So I'm relying on my staff members when they pick up their VoIP phone to hit star 408 and then the phone number that they're reaching out to. And the system will automatically change their caller ID to this 855 number. Again, this is a plan-specific feature. So this is something you're interested in. You need to talk to our account services team. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your staff members. In this case, here's everyone who's available. I can also see the devices that are available. You can see who is busy and who's not. Over here, you've got active inbound calls. Each call would have its own box with the phone number involved and who they're speaking to. The parked calls, if there's any parked calls, it would show their caller ID and the parking spot number. Recording Manager, this opens up a new tab, takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.net, uses your dash login to log in, and there you can view your call recordings. You can listen to them, you can download them, you can delete them. Webhooks, plan-specific feature. This allows you to link Dash to other software. You're definitely going to want to look at the Introduction to Zapier webinar in the links in the show notes. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com. That will show you sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software. This is programming to some degree, so not something most people are going to be able to wake up and just be able to do. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has access to their own user portal. It defaults them to the voicemail tab. So they can see their voicemail messages, right? The date, the time, they can play it back, they can download it. They put a check mark here. They can change the status. The call history tab, they can see the call history that they want. They can change the date range and see more calls. The fax tab is only good for users that have their own fax box, that they can see their fax history. The contact list shows everything on the Dash account, right? So other users, auto attendants, groups, etc. So that way your staff can find the correct extension to transfer someone to, for example. It's not something they can add to on their own. The conference tab for users that have conference feature enabled. Over here on the right is where they would adjust their PIN numbers, both for themselves as a moderator and then for whoever is joining their conference. They also have the ability to have people join when either muted or deafened, or play entry and exit tones. When you're actually in a conference over here, the plus sign, this allows you to invite other Dash users to your conference. This allows you to lock the conference so no one else can join. Mute everybody, unmute everybody, and the conference call. When you're also in a conference, each participant and moderator has their own little box, so you can mute a specific person or even kick them out. And then settings and devices. Right here is where your staff members would enable call forwarding on their own. Just put a check mark here, put +1 area code and phone number, and then save. And likewise, if they don't need it anymore, uncheck it and then save again. And that is everything. Haven't seen any questions pop up, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time.